Basketball is a game of flash and flare, where larger-than-life personalities often take center stage. But sometimes, a player comes along who rewrites the script not with words, but with actions. This is the story of a man who didn't need to talk to make his presence felt. A player who dominated quietly, methodically, and relentlessly. This is the untold story of Tim Duncan. Born on April 25, 1976, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Tim Duncan didn't grow up dreaming about basketball. In fact, his first love was swimming. Young Tim spent hours in the water, dreaming of Olympic gold, but fate had other plans. Childhood footage of St. Croix. In 1989, tragedy struck. Hurricane Hugo devastated St. Croix, destroying the island's only Olympic-sized pool. Around the same time, Tim's mother, Ione, passed away from breast cancer. Before she died, she told Tim to stay focused and finish school. Her words became his guiding principle. Left without a pool, Tim turned to basketball. At first, he was clumsy, uncoordinated, and far from the dominant force he would become. But Tim was a quick learner, and his work ethic was unmatched. He studied the game obsessively, and his natural athleticism began to shine. Coach's voice. Even as a teenager, Tim wasn't flashy. He wasn't dunking on people or talking trash. But he was fundamentally sound, and you could tell he had something special. By the time he reached high school, Tim's height and skill set made him a standout. But it wasn't until Wake Forest University came calling that he truly began to make a name for himself. At Wake Forest, Duncan blossomed under coach Dave Odom. He led the Demon Deacons to an ACC championship and earned the Naismith College Player of the Year award. But what stood out most wasn't just his stats, it was his demeanor. Tim played with a calmness that belied his dominance. He let his game do the talking. NBA draft footage. In 1997, the San Antonio Spurs held the first overall pick in the NBA draft. The Spurs had just endured a disastrous season, largely due to injuries to David Robinson. But with Tim Duncan on the horizon, the franchise's fortunes were about to change. When we drafted Tim, we knew he was special. But what we didn't realize was just how much he'd change our organization. Tim Duncan stepped into the NBA like he'd been there forever. In his rookie season, he averaged 21 points, 12 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game, earning Rookie of the Year honors. Together with David Robinson, he formed the Twin Towers, the duo that terrorized opposing teams with their defense and skill. Game footage. 1999 NBA Finals. By 1999, Duncan had already reached the pinnacle of basketball. The Spurs won their first NBA championship, and Tim was named Finals MVP. But even as the confetti fell, Tim's reaction was subdued. No wild celebrations, no bold declarations, just a quiet smile and a handshake. That was Tim. All business. He didn't need the spotlight. He was just about winning. Over the next decade, Duncan would lead the Spurs to 4 more championships. He'd win 2 regular season MVP awards and 3 finals MVPs. His bank shot became his signature move, earning him the nickname the Big Fundamental. What made Duncan so unique was his efficiency. He didn't waste motion. He didn't take bad shots. He was the epitome of team basketball. But it wasn't just his on-court brilliance that defined Duncan. It was his leadership. Unlike many superstars, Duncan wasn't a vocal leader. He didn't yell or demand attention. Instead, he led by example. He showed up early, stayed late, and put in the work every single day. Tim was the anchor. No matter what was happening, you could count on him. He'd never let the moment get too big. Duncan's humility extended beyond basketball. Despite being one of the greatest players of all time, he shied away from the limelight. No flashy endorsements. No off-court controversies. Just a quiet life focused on family, teammates, and his foundation, charity footage. Through the Tim Duncan Foundation, he's helped countless children and families in need. From funding cancer research to supporting youth sports programs, Duncan's impact off the court is just as impressive as his achievements on it.
Cut to 2014 NBA Finals. In 2014, at the age of 38, Duncan led the Spurs to their 5th championship. It was a masterclass in team basketball as the Spurs dismantled the Miami Heat in 5 games. For Duncan, it was the perfect swan song, a reminder that dominance doesn't have to be loud. Tim's legacy isn't just in the rings or the stats. It's in the culture he helped build. The Spurs became the Spurs because of Tim Duncan. Duncan retired in 2016, leaving behind a resume that few players in history can match. 5 championships, 3 finals MVPs to regular season MVPs, 15 All-Star appearances, and countless memories for basketball fans around the world. Tim wasn't just one of the best players, he was one of the classiest. He played the game the right way, no drama, no ego, just excellence. Today, Duncan remains involved with the Spurs as an advisor and occasional coach. He's also embraced his passions outside of basketball, from martial arts to his love of cars cut to modern footage. When people talk about the greatest players of all time, names like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant often come up. But ask any coach or player who's faced Tim Duncan, and they'll tell you he belongs in that conversation. Because greatness isn't always loud, sometimes it's quiet, consistent, and unrelenting. Tim Duncan didn't just play basketball, he elevated it. He showed us that you don't need to be flashy to be great. You just need to be yourself. So here's to Tim Duncan, the big fundamental, the silent assassin, the man who let his game speak louder than words ever could. In a league full of superstars, he proved that sometimes the greatest trick is simply mastering the basics.